Hi everyone, Miss Donaldson here. Today we're going to look at and review because you guys did this last year in 7th grade, combining like terms. Okay, let's look at some real life examples of combining like terms. Now, when I say like terms, those are basically like items. So for my example here, I have shoes because I know in middle school most of y'all are like shoe fanatics. So I have a pair of LeBrons, KD, and then Kobe's. Now, if you look, yes, they're both shoes. All three are shoes. But they're not the same type of shoe. Again, one is a LeBron, one is a KD, and one is a Kobe. So if I'm looking at these as the type of shoe or the name brand type of shoe, then these will not be like terms. But on the other hand, my next picture here, these are both LeBrons. Since they are both LeBrons, then these will be considered like terms. So again, right here, I have a LeBron, I have a KD, I have a Kobe. Since they're different brand types of shoes, these are not like terms. But on the other hand, here again, since I have two LeBrons, then I will call these like terms. Let's look at another example. So here I have iPod, and then an iPhone, and then a iPad. So again, yes, they're both Apple products. They're all Apple products. But looking at the actual technology itself, they would not be like terms. Because an iPod is not the same as an iPhone. An iPhone is not the same as an iPad. So these would not be considered like terms. Whereas here in my last picture, I have pictures full of iPads. So since they are all iPads, then I will consider these to be like terms. Now, let's look at combining like terms in terms of math. So, for instance, let's say I gave you the example 3x plus 4x plus 7y. So, what I have here, again, I have terms. Remember, a number and a variable side by side is considered a term. Now, when you look at your term has a coefficient. And remember, your coefficient is the number that's in front of the variable. So the underlying 3 in the term 3x is considered my coefficient. The x is what you call your variable. As we go through this, you're going to hear me call the variable the last name. For instance, my name is Cassandra Donaldson, but before I was married, I was Cassandra Cone. So let's say that I wanted to go to a family reunion. I could go to the Donaldson's family reunion because that is my last name. So we know that we're some relation. But if I went to a Waters family reunion, then people would think I'm crazy because I don't have that same last name, so we're no relations. So that is how you identify your like terms, by looking at the variables or the last name. So let's walk through this together. So for instance, let's look at my steps first. So on my steps, let's talk about how we actually go through and combine like terms. The first thing you need to do is you're going to divide. So on your organizer, which you already have, I want you to write divide. Divide or separate your expressions. And you're going to do that by identifying each term. Again, a term is a number and a variable. Once you divide it and you identify your terms, we're going to place a slash. And you're going to see the reason why in a second. You're going to place, that's not an I, but a slash in front of each sign. Because that's going to separate each term so I can look at the last name individually. Once I've did that, I'm then going to identify I'm going to identify like terms. And we can do it by colors. We can put shapes around them. Just so I can tell which ones have the same last name or who are cousins. Once we've did that, you then go back and you combine your like terms by using your integer rules. Once you've gone through, we're separated, we've grouped our same last names, or we have our cousins. We write simplified. And again, that's where we went through and combined it. We write our simplified examples. So if you need to pause it really quick to get that all filled out, feel free to do so. So let's go back and look at our example and then follow our steps. So here again, and I'm going to use a different color. So here again, my example was 3x plus 4x plus 7y. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I am going to actually, divide that up. So let's divide it. So I'm going to draw a slash. And if you can identify them without this, then don't worry about doing your slashes. So I'm going to put a slash. Notice, guys, that the sign that was in front of the term, that I grouped it with it because that's going to help you when you go to identify it. So I'm going to look for same last names, and I'm going to use colors. I'm going to highlight mine. So when I look at my X's, I'm looking for every term that has the last name X. That 3X has a last name of X, and that 4X has a last name of X. So I know everything in that light yellow is cousins. They're cousins. So they're going to be like terms. I'm going to grab a different color because that poor Y, that is not the X cousin. So I can't color it yellow. I'm going to color it this pinkish color here. Again, reason being is they have different last names. Now, had the X behind it, then it would have been the 3X and the 4X family member, but it's not. Then we've identified our like terms. Then we're going to combine the like terms. So let's go through and combine our X's and then combine the Y. So I'm going to write it down here. I'm going to go through, combine the X. So 3X plus 4X. Then on the next line, I'm just going to write 7Y because that was different. When I go through and combine 3X plus 4X, I get 7X. Again, I keep the last name. So my name is Cassandra Donaldson. So in this example, the 7 will be like Cassandra and the X will be like Donaldson. 7Y, same deal. It doesn't have any other cousins, so it's the only Y here. Now, I'm going to go back and I'm going to write my simplified expression. When I write my simplified expression, I need to combine it and write it by using the signs in front of it. So I know there's no sign in front of that 7X, so I know it's positive. So I'm just going to write 7X. Now, again, there's no sign in front of the 7Y, so I know it's positive or like I'm adding. So it's going to be plus 7Y. Now, I know that this is in simplest form because I have two different last names. I have if I look here, I have an X for the first 7's last name, and then I have a Y for the second 7's last name. So that lets me know two different last names that is in simplest form. So now let's go to the next page and let's look at the I do, we do, you do practice. Again, usually, I do it, then we do it together, and then you do it. But I'm just going to go ahead and do it with you since we're doing it through the Zaption. So since I don't have pretty colors, and you don't have pretty colors, we're going to do it by drawing shapes, by identifying. So you'll know how to do it both ways. So what we're going to do is again, I need to rewrite mine because I write big and I need to show you guys how to do this. So I'm going to rewrite my problem. So my problem is 6v plus 10 minus 3v. So when I look, that's a V, not a X. So I'm going to go through, identify my last names. Now, again, I'm not going to draw the slashes, but if you need to, you can. I'm going to identify all my same last names. So I see that V is a different last name, so I'm going to circle it. So I'm going to go through and circle all the V's. Now, again, notice that I circled the operation sign that was right in front of the coefficient, because that's going to tell me how to combine my like terms. Since there's no more V's, I'm not going to switch colors because they're not the same last name. So I'm going to circle this plus 10 in red because, again, they're different last names. So now I'm going to go through and I'm going to combine my like terms. So, sorry, and I didn't even catch that. I use different colors. You could have did a square or a triangle or something else to identify that 10. So now I'm going to go through and combine my colors. So for the pink, my pink circle, that was 6V minus 3V. And then for my red circle, it was just a 10 because I had no more like terms. So 6V minus 3V, let me change colors back to the pink, is 3V. Again, how I told you in the organizer, I'm going to use the sign to determine what I do with that. So I'm going to keep it 3V plus 10. 3V plus 10 is my answer. So let's go on to number 2. So again, I write big, so I'm going to rewrite mine. So negative 6 minus 6x plus x plus 1. So let's go through and identify what's in like terms. And I'm going to do shape for this time. So this negative 6 has no last name. So I'm going to circle everything that has no last name. Then I'm going to look at everything else that has a last name. So I see these X's. So I'm going to put a triangle around these X's. That lets me know that they are cousins. So when I look at it, my triangles is a negative 6x plus x. And then my circle is negative 6 plus 1. When I go through, and now remember, if there's no coefficient, technically it is. A 1 is there. So I'm going to go ahead and put that 1. So negative 6 plus 1 gives me a negative 5x. Negative 6 plus 1, we just said, gave me a negative 5x. Sorry, negative 5. So since that sign needs to be negative, I'm going to write subtracting. Remember, because it's just like you're subtracting when you have a negative. So it's going to give me minus 5, and that is my answer. Last one's pretty easy. They're both same last name. They're both P's. So I know that my last name's going to be P. So I'm going to go ahead and write the P. Now, I'm going to go negative 8 plus 10. It's kind of like this. Kind of like your bank account. You're negative $8, but you did some work for your grandmother and she gave you $10. So when you go to deposit that $10, what happens to the $10? How is it broken up? You're going to first have to pay what you owe the bank. So you owe the bank $8. They're going to take out their $8 out of that 10. Now, what's left over? You have $2 left over. So now since you have money, it's going to be a positive 2. So my answer is going to be positive 2p. Alright guys, so this is, hope this helped you. This is all I have as for combining like terms. Please make sure that you have your organizer, the top part filled out in the examples, and also your I do, we do, you do. On Monday, we will actually do distributive property. The bottom part of the organizer, and then the bottom part of the I do, we do, you do. So again, make sure that's glued into your iBooks. Once you have everything caught up, then you need to work on the practice that I have assigned for you. And if you finish that, then you guys need to work on your Khan Academy. All right, guys, I hope this helped you. Talk to you later.